Hello, all the Pick-a-Stick challengers. It is the month of October, and today is Friday, so you know what that means. First Friday of every month, we do the Pick-a-Stick challenge, and that's Chelsea and Peg Robinson, and I have already put up the video that shows us picking sticks for the month, and it's October, and guess what? The colors are chocolate and orange. How cool is that? I mean, totally random poll, but, you know, there must be some spirits out there somewhere having some control of this. So, let's get started. Now, there are 10 sticks that we pull each month, and we use 2 green, 2 orange, 1 blue, 2 red, 2 purple, and 1 yellow. And that's because each color indicates something, a product, a technique, a descriptive, an action, or a shape. So what we do is we pull the sticks and then we draw from those 10 sticks randomly to get us going. Now, the first thing we want to know is what colors we're going to use on our page. So I've already drawn the sticks, and they are chocolate and orange, but we need to prep our page first. So I'm going to use some gesso and just a gift card or door key card or credit card, whatever you have works for this. And it's a little bit too big for my deco art pot, so I'm just going to get a palette knife and put a little bit of that out there on my page, and I'm going to spread that around. So, you know, this is nothing difficult, you know, for all of those people that are telling me, well, I'm just a beginner and I don't know what to do. I like a layer of something in the background if I'm going to be using paints and sprays and things. It saves your media. You don't use as much because not everything is soaking right into the page. It's not going to soak through the page. So I'm putting a layer of this gesso down. Now, there are many different gessos on the market, and I happen to like this Deco Art gesso. It is not really firm, and it's not really soft. Some gessos are so runny that they put them in a squirt bottle and they squirt out. I'm not a fan of those. Some are thicker, and they're, to me, more like a modeling paste, but this one has, for me, the right consistency. So I prefer it, and I use it a lot. So, going to have to dry that, and we'll move on to doing more with our background. So this is the time that I decide what I want to do with my page, and I'm just cleaning off a page protector that's going to go in between my pages to protect the rest of my journal, and I will use some tape to mask off the areas like the spiral section. You don't want things going down into those holes and creating a problem on your other pages. You also decide if you want a border on your page. I kind of liked the idea of a border on this particular page, so I'm going to use some of this painter's tape. And what I typically do is touch it several times to my clothing just to take a little bit of the tackiness off of it. I may have overdone it on this one. You'll see later that I got a little bit of spill under, but because of the nature of the page that I'm doing, I don't mind it at all because it gives it kind of a creepy effect. So, you know, it's one of those happy accident things. And that's the thing when you're making art. You have to be happy with whatever you're creating because, you know, not everything is a masterpiece. And this is an art journal page, and we're just teaching ourselves how to use product and, you know, use prompts and get into our journals and do something. So, you know, I'm not too worried about this being a masterpiece. So I'm just putting some tape down so I can try to stay in frame for you guys. But I've sped this section up because these are kind of the boring things. But it's important. So for those new people, new to journaling, I want to make sure that I include this. And for those people who have been journaling for a long time and know all of this stuff, you can skip right over it, or you can speed it up down below to watch the sections that you want to. So now I'm reaching for my Distress Oxide inks, and I'm using some browns and oranges because those are our colors for this month. And I'm just moving that ink around on the page. I love these oxide inks just because of the effects that you can get with them. I'm going to clean the tape off because, I don't want to drag that extra ink around on my page. And I'm going to look at this. I'm going to say, yeah, it's going to have to be dried before I go on to any further steps. But the reason I use the ink pad and did what I did is because the first prompt for the Pick-a-Stick challenge says smash. So I'm smashing my ink pad into the surface of my page and moving it around. And then the next step, which is step number 2, is mask. So I'm going to get out some masking fluid and a stencil and a sponge, and I'm just going to sponge some of that masking fluid onto the background. I am using a stencil. This is a Stampers Anonymous brick stencil from Tim Holtz, and the masking fluid is a watercolor masking fluid. There are a lot of different masking fluids on the market, and you can pick up whatever you can find. There's drawing gum, there's the watercolor masking fluid, there's Frisket. It depends on the availability in the stores that you go to, but this one is something that I've had around for a long time. You can see that it's starting to coagulate. So I'm just going to pull that rubbery stuff off the top because the fluid is still good underneath. And this is what I'm going to use because it's what I have sitting on the shelf. This one happens to be a Winsor & Newton, and I believe it's available at Hobby Lobby. So if you're looking for something like that, you can find that there. Or, check your local craft store and see what's available. I also have things in my Amazon store. So if you use the links below and go to my Amazon, it does help to support me if you do your shopping through my link. It's just another way to help pay for the products and things that I use to produce these videos. But I will try to remember to put all of these products out there in my store and have links for you there. The cool thing about Amazon is you can support an artist just through shopping through their store. It doesn't cost you anything, and if you're going to buy things anyway, it just helps. Especially if you have Amazon Prime, then you don't even have to pay for shipping on most of these things that you're purchasing there. So anyway, moving on, we are going to do step 3, which is paint. And the paint I'm grabbing is also a DecoArt Media fluid acrylic. I'm using quinacridone gold and Payne's gray, and I'm just kind of blending them because I want a little bit darker shade, I want the gray to be on the brownish side rather than the blue that the Payne's gray is. So that's why I'm adding the quinacridone to it. And the resist is going to happen. And I'm going to spritz it with water. And this is just a little spritz bottle. And you can find those in your local craft stores also. And then I'm going to do a little bit of mopping. Use my towel for texture, wipe up the excess moisture on the edge, and of course then we'll have to move on to the next step, which, can you believe it? It's mask. Well, you're saying, well, we already had that. Well, the thing about our sticks is something might fall in both categories. It might be a product and a technique, or a technique and an action. So we could have the same word in multiple places, and that is what has happened this month. So this time I'm going to mask using another Tim Holtz stencil from Stampers Anonymous, and this one happens to be a spider webby looking thing. What is the name of that? Let me see if I can find it for you. The first one I used is Bricked THS038, and then this one I will find. So that stencil is Shatter THS014, and I wanted to show you quickly, this is how I store this type, because they are made for tags and they're from Stampers Anonymous. I just put them all on a ring binder, and then I can hang it on my hook over here by my desk. And then they also have the smaller ones. I do the same thing with them. So it's just a real easy way of storing things, and you'll also find links to those in the information on Amazon. So moving on from there, let's keep going. So as you can see, you don't always have to mask using a fluid or a piece of paper. You can also use a stencil as a mask, because what a mask is something that keeps another area of the page clear from accepting mediums. So this is the mask that I put on originally. It works kind of like rubber cement, and I'm just using my fingers and an eraser to pull that off of the page, because I'm ready to move on and do the next step. And the next step is number 5, which is vintage. So I have these cutout paper doll characters. These are also a Tim Holtz product. And I have this vintage card piece that is from a paper pack from Tim. And I'm thinking, well, I've got this little frame, and I can put the Halloween greeting inside of the frame. So I'm going to cut that down to fit this little wooden frame. And I'm just going to use some Aleene's tacky glue to secure that. Now, these pages will take a little bit of time. So, most of what you're seeing here is at least sped up by 2, sometimes 4 times faster, because I don't want to bore you to death, but I do want to get you all the details about how to assemble these creations and follow the prompts. So, I'm sorry if it's too slow for some, and I'm sorry if it's too fast for others, but like I said, you do have adjustments down below, so you can speed through or slow things down as you wish. So there's the little frame with the greeting card, and when I'm looking at that and I'm looking at the characters that I'm going to put on the page, I'm just auditioning. That little guy could have stood there and leaned on it, but I like the little seated guy. So now's the time I'm going to expose my page, and you're going to see, uh-oh, that stuff ran underneath the tape. Well, not to worry. It's a little bit tattered, a little bit worn, a little bit vintage, right? So we're going to roll with it. So I'm going to get my glue, and I'm looking at some rub-ons to see what's available there, and I'm going to make some determinations about where things are going to be positioned for my focal point on my page. One of the things that I find fun about this type of challenge is not only are you creating something on the page, but you're following the prompts, and sometimes that can be a little bit challenging. I'm just using a black, I think this is a micro perm pen from Sakura, and putting some emphasis on the border where I took the tape off. And then I also have little chandelier that I'm going to apply to the top of my page, because I think it's vintage and looking like something that I want on my page. Remember, the prompt was vintage. So we have our vintage images and chandelier. And then the next prompt is type. Now this is the 6th step, but you know, you don't have to stop there. We have 2 wildcards, and if you don't like a step, you can skip a step and do the wildcard, or if you just want to do all of the steps in the challenge, you certainly may. You know, this is your journal. There are not strict rules about how to do this. These are prompts, and so the prompts are meant to encourage you to try something outside of your normal realm of doing things. So I did find some words, and because they are typography, then I'm using that for my type and just using a bone folder to adhere those to my frame. I'm also going to use, let's see, I'm also going to use a stamp, and this is a very old stamp that I've had in my collection for many, many years. And I'm auditioning other things to see where I want them to go. Decide later, no, that's really not what I want to put on my page at all. So I'm going to grab some stickers because I like these creepy little birds and things and skulls. So add that to my curiosity shop thing we got going on here. And the stamp I'm going to use is because one of the wild cards is dots. And so this is a imagination stamp. So I hope you enjoyed this and come back and visit again soon. If you follow our prompts, please remember to use the hashtag PASC1018 so that we can find your work and see what you've done this month. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.